and I am the host, so getting used to saying that again. Okay. All right. Today's subject is dating, using maturity as a guide for dating. Overall, this channel is not dedicated to dating per se. It's really not dedicated for anything other than just developing ourselves. And part of the life cycle of part of nearly everyone's life cycle is their dating experiences and or their partnerships that they go through, where you actually have the option to be able to choose the partners that you want, which is there's a lot of the world that's that way. So many people do early on identify specific characteristics or patterns of maturity that they're like, oh, well, this person's good here, or they're physically fit, which is a physical element for maturity. They're in really good shape, or they're really good at dancing a certain way, or they physically carry themselves with the expression of confidence, things like that. Some people also date for financial maturity, which could be the opportunity to have more money. People date for all kinds of reasons. I'll go through actually each one of the 8 areas that I've covered in the fundamentals portion of this video or the series. So with that, obviously I mentioned already the physical element. The person can have all kinds of different attributes physically that are appealing, but it may be the single focal point or a limited focal point of your attraction to them. Early on, aesthetics in the physical body is common to be one of the areas that we find valuable, but as time goes on, we also want to have other things they be fleshed out for us. Other elements to be brought to the table so that you don't feel like you're doing all the work and then it's they are just there complementing with their physical body but not much else. That could cause a strain in the relationship, and it could also be a parasitic type of relationship, or the other person's feeding off of you, or you yourself are feeding off of them in the position that if without them you don't feel satisfied in a certain way. So physical. Then there's the intellectual element to it, or the cognitive concepts of it. Somebody, they may be intellectually capable of dealing with certain things that you find yourself are, wow, that's an appealing or attractive attribute. I really like that. I'm drawn to the intelligence. There's like people like sapiosexuals. Those are people that are actually erotically or aroused by the idea of intelligence. Then the next area would be community. Perhaps you find that the person seems to be fairly altruistic, or that they're always up to something to help support the community, and you like that caring, nurturing element about that individual. So that could be a maturity factor that you find yourself drawn towards. It could also be that they may be very powerful or very capable in a business element. Perhaps if by following along, if you haven't seen these before, I'm actually on the 4th one now. The business element aspect, and it's not necessarily the 4th one chronologically, like they work this way. There's 8 areas, and I'll speak about them in a way that's not always in the exact same order every time, just to make sure that's clarified. So with that, the individual may be really good at business, and you find that that's a very attractive characteristic or quality. Again, finances, as I mentioned earlier, that's one that you may find that they're in a financial position to either help you in your endeavors to do your own thing in business and or finances, or perhaps they're financially mature enough that you see they can help you with your bills or protect or possibly even take over your bills. Now, if you boil this down to where it's less, fewer elements about the 8 different areas of maturity, this could be considered like, if you're solely there for the financial portion and little to nothing else, could be like the sugar daddy or sugar baby type of relationship, or it's typically it's a little uneven here where it's predominantly the men taking care of women, but it's not always an exclusive. You do have some wealthy women that take care of men, or in different dynamics, so it's not as cut and dry as like a prostitution type thing. And I'm not saying that sugar babies are prostitutes, although there's a lot of the characteristics that are similar. It's the behavior values and things like that are very similar. And I'm not saying that there's a wrong thing about it either. I'm not one for that particular expression or desire. I like emotions involved with the things that I do. So, all right. So then we've got the business finance, the emotions, so perhaps, hey babe. Oh, she doesn't want to talk. All right. Perhaps The person does have some very strong elements emotionally. They could be somebody that, they don't cry at the funeral, but yet they do seem to express themselves in a way that gives them the desirable, relief, where you look at it and say that's a strength, that's more mature than I am, and it's appealing to me. And it doesn't have to be at a funeral; it could be any place emotionally. Perhaps they don't get spun up so easily, and you're like, I like that about you, and you're attracted to it. There's the let's see which one's left. No, emotion, sexuality. The person may have a very like Prince had a very high degree of sexuality and maturity. He pretty much. Oh, she fell down. She laid down. Okay. They pretty much have the expressions of sexuality overall well established. Oh, and by the way, just as a little side note, I love it when she puts her little arm up on the chair and it looks like she's sitting like a person. Oh, Athena. Okay. All right. So, sexuality, Prince really encapsulates that really well for anybody that's familiar with Prince. He was a very erogenous person, and he had a lot of sway about him. He had a lot of interesting traits about him. That he was androgynous. He wasn't necessarily like highly masculine. He wasn't highly feminine. He was kind of like in that middle ground where he expressed kind of both genders in that way. She's looking at herself in the mirror now. Okay, sweetheart, you're distracting me. No, this is on me, not her. Okay. All right, so there was all kinds of different variables that actually had Prince represent the concept of sexuality, maturity. And I do say it that way for a reason, because it's not just the sexual nature as in what most people think about, just the intimate act of intercourse, but there's other elements about sexuality. So perhaps you find that the person that you're interested in has a great degree or more mature element about sexuality, and you find that to be quite appealing, and you want to be around that person, and you find some endearment with that type of expression of maturity, or that level of development of maturity. Or spirituality. Perhaps you find, and this is the final one of the 8, commonly I do keep spirituality at the end for multiple reasons, but you don't have to when you go through this. It's up to you. So, with spirituality, could be that you do seem like you have a high purpose in your life, or you're very well mature in your development of who you are, in a way that you do express what you feel is a purpose in life, which feels like it's a motivated variable that has your life have meaning. Could be that you are highly religious, and that you can be religious and not come across as being highly spiritually mature or spirituality mature. You may look at it and be like, you know what, they just go to church regularly. They're very rigorous and religious about their visits to the church. It could be that, or whatever temple of worship or whatever it is, or practices that particular religion has. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to find it attractive. But if you find somebody that does seem to really exhibit a great deal of, I want to make a difference, and or they're impassioned and emboldened, they feel like they're driven by a purpose, and you find yourself driven to that or drawn to it, and it's a attractive quality. That's the 8 areas. Now, you can have a combination of all of them, and in my opinion, it's rare to have one area only that you find attractive to the point that you date that person for that reason. You could find somebody attractive for one area only, and either it turns into a short-term fling, could be one day, it could be, a week, a month, 6 months, whatever, but still be kind of classified as a fling to you because you weren't as emotionally invested in it becoming something more than that. Now, there's other variables too, like you can do all kinds of different combinations and say, I really appreciate this about that person. But when they show up with a representation of more maturity, it's natural, if you find them attractive in other places, for that to be one more reason to justify the desire to actually want to spend time with that person in a relationship type fashion. Now, we can continue to move into multitude of areas where you feel like that person's just more well developed all the way around. Now, this is where you can find that you are playing, like I like to also look at it like life is playing chess. And life, you're playing chess, you're looking for people that know how to play chess in a way that makes you better by them beating you or stressing you in the game. Stressing you enough that you have to adapt to the situation, and then you realize there are more moves or more opportunities, or you think one more move in advance than you have before. And that would be like the concept of chess. But I like to find people that help me continue to think at a deeper level and a more broader level at the same time. So I do seek those kind of people out in my life, and so that I can have those types of interactions and enjoy the growth and development and the ahas, the blind spots that become available because they are the ones that are giving some level of guidance. As my previous video on developing yourself and what I've done as far as like studying and realizing where I was in the scheme of things, and then getting jobs or getting a job in the line of becoming, like, making the career moves that I wanted to see successful. And because I couldn't afford the mentorship, I couldn't afford to, with my life circumstances, to go back to school and still be able to maintain running a business. I stopped the business and went to work for a company that the skills that I evaluated as missing, the company needed me to be really good at that in order to validate the job. So it was a very hardcore learning process in the beginning. As I covered that in a previous video, that was kind of the report card of, one, making sure you keep your job, and then secondly, becoming better at it. And the environment offered that, as well as mentorship, from like reaching out and having other people mentor me, whether they knew it or not sometimes. But unfortunately, I had a lot of generous, wonderful people involved at the time. And these friendships still remain after, more than 5 years at this point. So with that, in these areas when we're dating people, we can sometimes accidentally find ourselves there, not realizing that what was attractive about them is that they actually are more mature in some area than we are. It's not always that the person just looks good. So you can have people that look good, but you don't have a lot of fun with them, or you don't really feel challenged. You don't feel like you're making progress in your life with them. I'm not saying don't date people like that. I am saying that just understand that if you date somebody like that and then you make them wrong for not making you better or taking care of you, you'd want to take kind of the Michael Jackson approach in this, in the song, The Man in the Mirror. If you want to see something different, take a look in the mirror, take a look at your life and make the change. It's wonderfully wise words. So with that being said, we'll also find that we do, in the earlier stages, pick out specific aspects or attributes about somebody, find it appealing, get into a relationship with them, and then as time goes on, continue to find either where they're not well developed, consider that to be a point against them because it shows up as some sort of developmental weakness, or that they're just weak in concept, So we have some challenges when it comes to that as well, is looking back at those types of relationships and becoming responsible for that. Predominantly, the majority of our relationship issues is that we just won't stand in responsibility versus the other elements and aspects of being responsible and what that brings to your life. I don't look for a relationship to satisfy shortcomings in a way that I'm not looking to overcome them by developing myself. And perhaps in that situation, my partner is also a mentor. And I do actually prefer partners in that way, that they are a mentor as I'm dealing with certain situations, whether it's a spoken thing or not, which I do actually. I'd much rather that I speak it than just let it happen. It's not like it's a conscious mastermind concept. I'm drawn to this type of pattern of learning. I want to learn and develop as any place that I possibly can. And the more aligned it is with my goals when I find out about it, the more likely I am to actually pursue that with a little bit more effort than if I don't feel like it's aligned with the goal, then I may not pursue it as much. So as we all go through this process, it is more behoovant to us, more beneficial that we start learning, so that we start, it looks like my mic dropped off. Oh, it's back. Okay. That we start learning what areas we can develop ourselves in. It's not go date somebody solely to develop you, but a lot of times we actually are. We're just not doing it with an absolute declaration. It's like, I really like how that person handled himself there, or whatever it is. There's some variables that's not just about the parental patterns like Freud would suggest or have suggested, that we oftentimes find ourselves dating the opposite sex of our parent than ourselves. So if it's a guy, usually he'll date a woman similar to his mother, and if it's a woman, it's typical that they'll date a guy that's similar to their father. It's Freud has that piece built in. I'm not saying that's an absolute. He actually was a very versatile individual overall. I think he gets pigeonholed a lot in modern society and in pseudosciences, or the pseudopsychologies. But as far as that goes, I'm not going to go on and on and on about one particular portion of the subject, but overall, start to be responsible for these elements. If this gives insight, so you can say, you know what, I am dating somebody for these reasons. It doesn't mean stop dating them, and it doesn't mean go try to get married to them. Don't have your partner enable you to the point you don't develop yourself. If your partner's helping you pay your bills, you're going to be better off learning how to use their position as scaffolding you so that you can eventually have that removed, so you're not just using them for finances. Because it's a horrible experience for somebody who's in it for love and they find out that they're being used. That's a horrible experience. But if they're okay with being used because it's part of the agreement, then they'll stick around because they're okay with it. They just understand their serving place, if you will, versus this free range of like, it's all about love, baby. You want to be able to go beyond that and understand that, you don't burn your relationship simply because you knowingly didn't say something. And for the past experiences you've had, when you have these insights and now you can become responsible for it, you can always just let the other person know if you choose to. If you're carrying baggage with you today into the next relationship, hoping the next person will just help you feel better about yourself, so that the emotional maturity, right? So that they can say, oh, it's all going to be better. It's all going to be better. And you're having them pay amends for the person that did it in your past. You may want to go ahead and have that completed. Either go back to that past relationship in a safe way for yourself as well as for them, and make amends, get closure, or accept it for where it is right now, accept that what happened, and then stop needing the effect of your partner to emotionally coddle you. It's okay for somebody to show you emotional attention, but if they're doing it regularly, if you find yourself constantly needing to go back to get the world's dangerous, protect me type of method of thinking or behaving, then you might want to complete some of those things and stop putting the extra work on your partner. If your partner is a nurturer, you may be interlocking a relationship that may have, the benefits are consistent because you keep lining up that way, but whenever those needs aren't there, you don't really seem to get along as well. These are excellent insights on how to actually start identifying what kind of relationship you're in. Which most people don't know. They just keep bouncing back and forth relationship to relationship, or they'll take periods of time off without effort into anything serious or significant, and they just sit on it. They're like, I'm not even going to try. So there's the I'm not trying. It's the nihilistic approach, if you will. It doesn't matter anyway, blah, blah, blah. Or, by the way, I just did one of my own little pet peeves. I'm not a big fan of doing blah, blah, blah. So when I do that, it echoes in the back of my head. I'm like, what information am I omitting when I say that? That utterance of almost conversational platitudes. It's disturbing to me to some extent, because what else did I want to say then? We'll just take back the blah, blah, blah. All right. So if you want to develop certain areas about yourself, be sincere about it. Don't burn a bridge because of the desire that you want to be able to get some business mentorship and the person happens to be attractive. If you let them know, I really admire this stuff about you and I really would like to learn more. I'm growing myself where I currently am. I'd like to be able to, understand where I'm going to be in 5 years, but I don't really know it. So therefore, understand I'm growing, but I would like to learn what I can while we're together here too. Or I just want to learn, if you don't mind showing me some of these things. And you've already made several different declarations. Like, I don't know where I'm going to be in 5 years. To be honest, none of us really will know where we're going to be in 5 years. So now what's the next thing? I mean, it's pretty honest. Then there's I really like these areas that you are proficient in, that you're mature in. I want to learn these areas. Do you mind showing me? If they're genuine and sincere and really into the relationship, they'll probably be pretty honest with you about that. So as far as that goes, how to date up, or date somebody who's equivalent in maturity to the degree that they're functional to the level that you're functional. Otherwise, if they're more functional in that area, they're more mature. If they're less functional in that area, they're likely less mature. If it's an area you're okay with carrying somebody in, which I do encourage that as well, to offer, opportunities for other people to grow as well. But it's better to have the declaration than assume they will, because most people aren't going to just fall into your assumptions and do what you say. That creates quiet resentment over time. And then next thing you know, it's warfare, or some other challenging situations that really aren't necessary because you didn't say it in the beginning. When that's whenever it's, you should say. Versus, I know, but I didn't say anything about it. I just assumed you'd come around to it at some point in time. It's not very fair because life has all kinds of things to focus on. Why would you expect them to focus on the area that you're interested in whenever they may be really attached to some other area? Maybe they're growing a business. Maybe they're dealing with family health issues. Maybe they're just dealing with trying to keep a strong social network with friends and they feel like they've slipped on it a little bit. Maybe it's a financial thing they're really just grinding out. Maybe they're going to the gym more often and taking better care of themselves, and that's distracting or occupying their mind at the time. Don't make them wrong for it, but just understand it. You can create a better conversation. Your discourse will give you more reward. Well, for the viewers that have joined, I do apologize that the video is not going to be quite, or the episode won't be as long today as it has been in the past, but I don't really have a whole lot more to say about it at the time. We can always do another video on this. I have no problems or challenges with that whatsoever. It's a topic that I am interested in speaking about. I hope that there's plenty of takeaways in this. Also that this is insightful, even if it's not necessarily a full-blown takeaway today. Perhaps it's a seed. You put it in your pocket, you go home, drop it in the ground, and over time it'll turn into something beneficial for you. It may not be right now, but insight is the seeds of life, right? Like, what else can we do with this stuff? So my next, obviously in the closing, is I do hope that you do take something away with this. Offer it to others. If you find that somebody in your life in particular is dealing with some of these challenges, by all means, suggest this to the channel. Suggest them to the channel. Have them, check in, listen, take something away. I do this because I want to see our society grow closer together, not further apart. And a lot of the things that I'm talking about seems to create, it's a response to division. I don't want to see more division. I want to see us come together. But I also don't want to see us to come together in a way that we make ourselves more open to danger, in the way that danger might be the actual consequences, but more of just, let's do something great together. And we are in this together. So like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notifications for the platforms that have bell notifications, and it'll give you some updates whenever these videos are on their way on, when I schedule recordings or when I go live. As well as leave comments. I enjoy the comments. It's something that I can give some feedback to, or perhaps even inspire another conversation in a different way, or furthering the conversation in another video or another episode. So, all right, guys and gals, that's it for today. Again, this is Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia, and today it was on maturity for dating. And looking forward to our next one. So, with that, again, it's Chad Everett Brochures, and this is Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia. Enjoy the rest of your day, and looking forward to our next one.